live, so let's kick it off. Jordan, you want to ring us in?
Yeah, I got the bells back.
Nice, good stuff. So
we don't do the count off and the clap because it worked so badly last time.
Yeah, let's do the clap. Let's do it. All right, so we'll do it
that.
on 4. So 1, 2, 3, clap. And we are all drummers here, so I really hope we can get this right. All right, so here we go.
I'm so excited.
Yep, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Slight delay, but we'll get it. It'll work.
I think for it to work, everyone apart from you would have to clap early.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because of the internet.
Because of the internet. Well, I hope this. I hope it still works out. I'm sure with all of the audio files here, we can figure this out. So we have a guest today, Benny GREB. Hi, buddy. Thank you for being here.
Big pleasure.
This is your second time on the Chocolate Croissants podcast. And we kind of took a break for a while with the podcast, but given the now afforded time that many of us have allotted now on our hands, and I think the importance of connection, interaction, and education, we decided to bring it back. And over the past couple of weeks, Benny, we've been pretty consistent with new episodes, and obviously the topic has centered around what's happening in the world right now, mainly from a wellness perspective, therapeutic perspective, providing people with insight on how we're handling the situation and how we've developed new routines and what we're sort of doing to adjust to a new lifestyle. So I think I definitely have some questions for you in regards to that, but it seems to have been so far really helpful. We've gotten a lot of feedback from people that have said, I've been in this downward spiral mentally and I'm stressed about this, but hearing some of the ideas and hearing some of the conversations has sort of brought people back, and that's obviously the goal. So, right. I think just to sort of carry on from there today, is kind of where we can start talking. And just to give you guys a quick update, I'm doing a lot better with the routine and with things now. I've had ups and downs, as I'm sure many of us may have had with this, different good days, different bad days. But I did want to follow up briefly from the Dunkin' Donuts thing last week, which, Benny, just to give you the quick story, my in-laws were coming back from their beach house and they stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and they got coffees to go. And they sent myself and my wife a picture of the coffees, and they were wearing gloves. And they said, look, we're wearing gloves, we're being safe. And my wife's first reaction is, what about the lids? So come to find out that after they took the picture, they took the lids off and they wiped down the rims of the cups with wipes, and then they drank it. So all of that worry that I had goes right out the window. And I think that's a really sort of interesting moral to the story of not getting too caught up in the what ifs of things and worrying about scenarios that haven't actually transpired. And trying your best to some degree, ignore the madness and focus on what you can do, what you can control, and what's right in front of you.
Right.
So that's the long story. That's the moral of that story, which was they weren't actually being irresponsible.
Right.
So anyway,
so that's something that gets you worried. So to be like, oh my God, they don't do that.
I've been sort of like the boy in the bubble over the past few weeks. Something you may not know about me personally, Benny. Throughout my life at different points, I've struggled with anxiety, and for the most part, I have a really good handle on it. I've gone through a lot of therapy in the past, so I know how to manage it. However, with this whole pandemic, with some of the fears that I think are being created, it's definitely, and where I live and kind of what's been going on locally, it's gotten under my skin. I've been afraid of getting sick. I've been afraid of a family member getting sick. Although the odds are in all of our favor, it's still something that has been on my mind. And I think with the combination of the life changes and being really hyper aware of things like washing hands and disinfecting things and what we have to do now here in the States when we go to the supermarket or what we do when we go out, it's just a constant reminder. So someone like me who normally has a sort of very low undercurrent of anxiety present in any given day, when you have things like this, it really spikes. So to my point before, I've had good days and I've had some rough days, but the things that have really brought me back to center have been a combination of being in this a little bit longer now and getting used to it, and a routine for sure. And that routine is centered around physical and mental wellness. And we can definitely talk about this because I'm curious as to your take on it, but waking up with a cold shower, doing my breathing techniques and my breath work, making sure I exercise, spending time in the evening in the sauna, and then finishing up my day with another combination of cold and hot shower work and eating well. So that kind of routine sort of filling in around the work I have to, I shouldn't say have to do, but the work I get to do and the work that I am able to fit into the day, those things really tend to be now the pillars of my schedule that allow me to kind of stay focused and on track.
Yeah, makes sense. Sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so I don't want this to be all about me by any means. I just wanted to sort of touch base from that story because, again, I don't know what it's like for you in Germany. And Joe, I don't know what it's like for you in the UK. But here, like Jordan, I just got back from the supermarket with Natalie. We're wearing our masks. We're wearing gloves. We're wiping down and washing all of the produce. We are leaving the bags outside. There's a pretty big effort on our parts to make sure we are not bringing in any sort of contaminants or virus. And even more so than us getting sick, it's to protect others that we might be around, like our family members. So it's a little intense. What is it for you?
There are different, comparable to states in the US, there are different parts of Germany. So Bavaria is an area, Hamburg is an area in the north, Bavaria in the south. So they also can make kind of different degrees of these shutdown laws and stuff. I think like with states in the US as well. And so Bavaria has gone pretty hard on that, because of the proximity to Italy and more the south where it hit the hardest and it hit the earliest. And now we're up in the north. I mean, when it all hit the hardest in North Italy, I actually was very close to North Italy, near Innsbruck, near Vienna, Austria, and then had to drive up, and then more and more these kind of different degrees of kind of shutdown or social distancing were introduced or recommended. I think in Bavaria it's more a thing of like really the police goes around, and if someone wants to do a barbecue and something and just act stupid, they actually will tell them to get the fuck home. and here it seems a little bit looser, so you can go to the park if you keep distance to other people. They don't want you to go out unnecessarily and mingle, of course, and I don't want to, but I never wanted to. I don't like human beings, so no, but seriously, it's, of course we feel it, but there is it really has both sides for me. So on the one side, first of all, the first tour that I had coming up was a tour in China. So that was gone first. Then I had a drum camp in North Italy.
Oh, God.
So I was really lucky with my kind of job planning and scheduling. So I basically have nothing on my schedule till September. Basically, I have not one thing. So, and this is the first time in, I think, since 1995 that I haven't had a gig, like at least a couple of times a month, if not a couple of times a week. And so that's interesting, because it goes against my musician kind of thing of like, the alarm goes off, so something is wrong. Maybe I messed up, or maybe I'm now maybe I did something wrong in terms of, when you come up as a self-employed musician, the first kind of thing is to say yes to everything and to fill your schedule to kind of survive. So if you're at home for a month, that's just a symptom of you like having not done your homework, basically. So I have to, that comes back a little bit, which I find interesting. But on the other side, I have these other factors. The weather is amazing right now in Germany. It's actually like an early summer. It's absolutely wonderful. Birds are singing. My son is ecstatic because he doesn't have to go to school. He loves it. He's 8 years old, and he couldn't be happier. Like we do barbecue in the garden, and we hang around, and we work out together, and he's also into the cold showers now a little bit, and almost screams as much as I do. So we have fun together. And so there's now this family time that is way more extended and intense. I get more sleep. Quite honestly, like this is a huge plus. Like there haven't been in the last 20 years, I haven't had like at least 2 times jet lag hard per month, where my clock had to completely and be like, feel like a zombie, like for 2 days here or there. And to now have a couple of weeks where I come into a rhythm of normal people, like I would have a normal job or no job, is a wonderful experience in a way. And I'm in the maybe lucky situation that I'm one of those musicians, and I know you belong to that probably too, or at least know many people that belong to that, who are always, while they're on tour and doing these projects that they really want to do and doing this and that, always saying like, I have to update my website, but I just don't have time for that. Or I have to finish this book, but of course, I don't have time for this. And my paperwork is a little bit weird, but I'm never home. And so, and my garden looks horrible, but I'm a touring musician. So there are all these things now that all of a sudden I actually get to do and get to kind of clean up my act here at home and get to projects that I actually sometimes, I thought in the last couple of years sometimes I fantasized about, maybe half-heartedly, but I fantasized about maybe a sabbatical or something, because traveling, I don't want to complain. I think we do have the best job in the world, but traveling is tough. Like it can be tough and demanding, definitely, health-wise, definitely. And so that there is the good and the bad. If I had no input going in, like in the next 5 months, and that's not that unlikely, I still would know what to do every day from morning till evening. Actually, in an amount where I almost got stressed in the last week of like, look, I don't have to do everything at once. Not everything has to be now perfect here, but it's interesting where thoughts go. I also caught myself almost thinking like, when they talked about like maybe loosening the things a little bit, because Germany now is doing a good job, and like we don't have that many new cases as we feared at first. And I was like, wait, what about this is over before I get all my homework done? Like where I think like, oh, this is crazy. Like, what am I thinking? Why not let people travel and I still stay at home and do my homework. I don't need the crisis to continue for me to be disciplined to finish my projects at home. So, but it's interesting. So, yeah, this is kind of a first overview. Maybe you have questions more specific, but that's kind of the headspace that I'm in right now.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Benny, I'm curious. I mean, look, for all of us, this has given us an opportunity. In many ways, it's forced us into this opportunity of reflecting on how we've been living prior to this, and what had been working, what wasn't working. And it seems like you're one of the most productive people I've ever interacted with, and it's no surprise that you've used this as an opportunity to kind of start working on some of those things that maybe were on the back burner because of all your other obligations as you traveled and worked with people in person. So I'm curious. Look, it's fascinating for me to hear, once these restrictions may loosen a bit, you're thinking like, oh shit, I'm kind of enjoying this new rhythm in my life right now. Whether that may be with your drumming and music career, or even the engagement with your son. So I'm curious, at this point, into this new reality, can you already get a sense of how does your life change even when you do have this freedom to travel a bit more again?
I haven't thought about this much, to be quite honest. Because in the beginning, as probably also with most of you, like at first there was this phase of like, oh, we're going to move this tour till a month later, or we're going to move it till 2 months later. And now it almost also on the sense of like the agency I'm working with, they now like surrender to the situation and be like, you know what? We can't make any predictions for the next kind of 2 weeks or 2 months or anything. Let's just wait with everything. That's kind of just, and this is where I'm at right now. It's like, you know what? I know what is now. I know what I can control now. And I at least know one thing. I don't want this to be over. And then looking back, having regrets. Yeah. Then looking back and being like, I should have, because this is a historical chance also. Again, I'm not to take lightly that of course there are people suffering in health-wise, financially, definitely. But just for me personally, so I definitely don't want this crisis to continue for other people, but just for me in my time management kind of, I thought my job is, okay, how do I deal with this new situation, and how do I not waste my thoughts on things that I can't change or can't control? Because that's when you feel like a victim, of course, of circumstance, because there are many things that are out of our control. And if we hope for or try to, and it's like there's no use for that. So what will happen after that? I don't know. Now is all we have, I think.
If I may, I think another way to sort of ask the question that Jordan just asked is, if you had to guess, you had to say right now, if like let's say you have to make a call, do you think that based on how much you are actually taking advantage of this situation, how productive you're being, seemingly how much you're enjoying the time at home, do you think that you might consider working in more home time to your schedule than previously in the past, given how much you have been going and going and going? That's maybe another way to answer that question.
Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, I had, even before this double life where I'm half of the month I'm touring and doing stuff musically, and then half of the month I'm a dad. So I already had kind of this, double life. I like double life because it sounds like Superman or something, but no. But I don't know. I mean, on the other side, there is no doubt about it that as soon as I can, to play with and for people again, and I want to be in contact with people and teach in person. I'm not so much I get tons of requests for like Skype lessons and blah blah, and I'm not so much in the headspace for it, to be quite honest. I love being in a room with people and seeing their faces and working with them. I'm a hippie in that way, and yeah. So who knows? But first, I have some homework to do.
Yeah.
Well, here's my guess, if I may, Matt.
Yeah.
I totally relate to you, Benny. I mean, I get energy by being in the room with people, and most of the work that I do is working with individuals one-on-one, but especially in a group setting. And I know for sure one way that I will be fundamentally different moving forward once we get through this is that when I am working in the room with people, the preciousness of that will be so much more apparent to me. And for that, I will be fundamentally changed forever. And I hope it's one of those things that shine doesn't wear off over time, whether 10 months from now or 10 years from now, because now that it's been taken away, I mean, what a gift, you know? And so for me, that is hopefully one of the biggest lessons that I take from this, just the preciousness of being in a room and creating and connecting and engaging, especially musically, with other human beings.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing.
I couldn't agree more. I can't wait to get out and play shows again. We just had to cancel our tour officially in June.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, it's it was expected for sure. But it's pretty unbelievable to hear the sort of prognosis from people, professionals in the industry, saying that there's a very good chance that bands won't be back out touring until 2021, or maybe even second quarter, third quarter of 2021.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
It's definitely real. I mean, I talked with my agency, and I said, like, look, I mean, people that are really struggling, right? Like, what do you? And they're like, yeah, I mean, sometimes when we have to do, I mean, my agency basically lives from, it's not my agency, but the agency that I'm affiliated with, they live from their daily like bread and butter is to do like 50. To promote like 50 shows a month or something,
right.
And then if that doesn't happen, now they're in the situation that they already worked for those shows that now are getting canceled, so they get squawked, and then they have to kind of see where to put it and blah blah. So they're already are like, ooh. And then what they told me is like they said they talked to clubs and they said like, look, can we do it in August? Can we do it in like December? And they say like, look, maybe we won't be around then. Some of the clubs are actually like, let's see. And then they have this one band that collaborated with this brewery in Bavaria that existed for 400 years. It's like one of these, and they're bankrupt now.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, so I have these islands around me where I see like, oh wow, okay, yeah, this is serious. I mean, I'm doing my hippie stuff here, and I try to finish my book. But of course, there's definitely other stuff happening. But again, reinforcing for me, I got a text from a friend recently, a fellow musician, very cryptic. He said like, nah. And then another one like, oh man. And then another one like, and I'm like, what's up? Like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, coronavirus, it's horrible, blah. He said a worst word that I don't want to say now. And then I said, like, are you sick? Is anyone of your loved ones sick? And he said, like, no, I just don't like not being able to do what I want to do. And then I just ranted at him. I was like, dude, stop it right now. Like, you're not sick. You don't know anyone who's sick. Like, you financially okay. Like, stop right now. Like, get busy, do what you, and be grateful for what you have. And I think it's a very human thing to, of course, focus on, oh my God, we don't have that. And I think we have to be careful of that. For example, that not our rights to protest or to gather and to move freely without an app on the phone and stuff. So that is not a permanent thing, because usually when freedom gets taken away, as we in Germany very well know out of history books, they usually are not given back. So we have to be aware of that, the stuff that goes away and that is not here now. But at the same time, we should always be incredibly grateful for what we do have and what we still do have. And so, I mean, with myself, I got a nice reminder recently, because I just had a near-death experience like 3 weeks ago, where someone on the Autobahn just kicked me out of my lane and into a couple of trees. So that was very exciting, and I just realized, wow, I could sit in a wheelchair right now. You know, it's like. So I'm very very happy with what I think. For me, the thinking is, only because I don't have challenges and problems doesn't mean that I can't be grateful. We sometimes think it's an either or. I try to have the mindset to be grateful for the problems I have right now, because I could have very different ones, you know. So
yeah. Do you have a daily gratitude practice per se?
I do. I think it's one of the most important things. Yeah, sure. I actually do this with my family now, and my son sometimes reminds me of it. In the morning, we always ask, or we call it the morning questions. The first one is, what are the 3 things you're grateful for today? Then the next one is, what are 3 things for a great day? Then the next one is, what are 2 affirmations? 2 or 3 affirmations. And then that's it. And then in the evening, before going to bed, we ask, what are the 3 highlights of the day, or magic moments, or whatever you want to call it. And then, what are 3 things that you learned today? Which is a linguistic trick to not say what sucked, but to frame it in a productive way. So to be like the Buddhists say, if you lose, don't lose the lesson. So of like, I now know, I mean, to make it silly, I now know this rudiment is way harder than I thought. It instead of like, practicing sucked today, you know? Right. So, and it's also maybe a framing that sets you up for the next day. That might be one of the 3 things for a great day in the next day. And it's also maybe something to ponder for the subconscious while asleep, or I don't know. But it's just something ritual-wise that frames the day nicely. And it's also, if you do it with your family or loved ones or people that you Skype with or whatever, it's a thing of nice communication. If I know, for my girl, like what's the 3 things that she wants to get done today, or what is important in the day, I already can feel whether she will be like, I just want to relax, I feel stressed, and blah, blah. I already know what that means in the day. Or if she's like super pumped and has, as in Germany we say, I don't know if you have that saying in America, to have bumblebees in the ass. That means that means you feel like you have to do something, you have to be productive, you have to, you have to. So the communication bit that I just talked about is a plus, but the main thing is, I think, to direct your spotlight in your mind that we have anyway, that just goes wherever, whatever is latest and loudest, to focus that on the things that might or hopefully serve us.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, it's something that I need to personally make sure that I include in my day, along with the routine, to make sure that I'm stopping and having that either personal conversation with myself or with my wife, for example. And it was great. Last night yesterday we drove down to her family's beach house because no one's here, and it's just the 2 of us, and we can spend a week. And we've been we sold our house officially, and we've been living with her parents, which is great. But there's 4 of us and 3 dogs and 2 cats, and it can get a little bit manic. And coming down here, was definitely a goal for us to be able to just get away. I mean, I don't know if you can see out this window, but that's the ocean.
Oh shit!
So I mean,
you're such a show off. I mean,
I know. I'm totally showing off.
At first, I thought, wait a second, we moved in with our parents. That sounds like a jazz musician, and now you show this. Oh, yep. Jesus.
Yeah. I'm doubling back.
Great.
But yeah, and we're living with them for the next 4 or 5 weeks until we can move into our new house. But coming down here last night, it was like the first time, and I want to say in a couple weeks, where my wife and I really, I think, just like took a deep breath, had a really good conversation about the things that we've experienced in the past couple weeks living with family, realizing that we have, despite this forced downtime in some ways, we have not stopped. We really have not stopped. Well, we figured out we haven't stopped since October, with different pretty big things going on in our lives, both independently from each other and then as a married couple. And we talked for a couple hours last night and really kind of recapped a lot and expressed the gratitude that we have for certain things. And it was one of the best conversations we've had in a long time. To think that that's something that we really can practice every day by framing questions like you're talking about is a very attractive thing to me, because it leaves a very good taste in your mouth. And it sets, like you said, it sets the spotlight for the day.
And just to be clear, I think that's a great point. And crazy busy can in itself be a distraction, of course. So I'm not putting productivity on a pedestal. Only if, in my definition, being productive is having a great time with my son, having a great meditation or a great whatever. If I want to do that, or it can be like finishing to mix this song or whatever. But productive doesn't mean that now the craziness has to continue. Like whatever is needed, whatever is, I think. I mean, it's always important. I mean, look, the funny thing is, all the things that we now say, oh, it's very important now to take care of yourself, or it's very important now to look that you're happy and you're not crazy busy and stuff. That was always important, really, wasn't it? Like it's maybe just simpler if you get your normal routine. Whenever your routine is taken away from you, then you have to rethink. Everything comes into consciousness a little bit more, and that rethinking itself, or thinking about every step, will of course maybe let some things resurface or surface for the first time, and that has to be a good thing in a way, to also give that attention and to give that time and space. And then the only way out is through with these things usually.
Before we pivot from the conversation of gratitude, look, I think it's wonderful, Benny, what you shared and this very concrete practice that you have in community with your family members. But for some watching or listening to this, they may be in isolation by themselves right now, or look, may just not feel comfortable calling up someone in their family or a good friend and saying, hey, why don't we try this gratitude thing together? So I've shared this in our private Facebook group, but I don't know if I've shared it publicly through one of these episodes. But our good friend, Jeff Blake, who is a former guest on Chocolate Croissants, he has a wonderful, very warm and inclusive private Facebook group called Global Gratitude Jar. And every single morning, he sets up the post for the day with usually an image and some teaching, some story, but he puts creative and some touching thought into that day's post. But essentially, it sets up a thread for everyone in the group to simply share what they're grateful for. Some people will share one word. Some people write a few paragraphs. And there's a lot of community members that offer incredible social support, that go through and will comment on other people's responses and start conversation from there, or just simply kind of offer this energy of I see you and I'm here with you in this. So for those who might feel a bit more comfortable doing it digitally, for those who may feel comfortable perhaps doing it with people that they may not have close relationships with, global gratitude jar. Whether you sit and you observe before you feel even comfortable sharing publicly or on your own, because we all kind of start at different places of comfortability with these things. But
and an important one. Oh, sorry, I didn't.
The importance of cultivating a safe, supportive community, whether in person or online, just like we're trying to do with the Chocolate Croissants Facebook group. I think us modeling these types of behaviors through our comments and through the threads that we start can hopefully help people build more trust and comfort, and eventually that can lead to more personal expression.
And I think writing down that stuff is incredibly helpful anyway, whether it's digital or I'm a little bit old school. I really believe in the act of, which is basically materializing immaterial things, thoughts. And that's just a magical thing that happens there. It organizes thoughts, it slows down thoughts, because usually thoughts, especially the more anxiety or the more stressed you are, there's usually a ping pong game of argument, counter argument, or an either or like conflicting things, blah, blah, blah. And they usually go in circles without stopping and losing energy. But when you write something down, you have to grab one of these things that flows around and put it somewhere, and then there is less, and it forces you to, gently forces you in a good way to structure thoughts, and it's just a magical thing, I think, to always put thoughts on paper. And you can do a mind sweep, which is basically just writing down. It can be gibberish, like words that, like no. It's not even brainstorming in the sense of like, oh, I want to get good ideas. Not even directed. It can be just like, you know what, I want to do a brain dump, or however you want to call it. All these things are incredibly helpful, I think. I do this before practicing always. Because I need every little cell I have up here for what I'm about to do, and I don't want to have like, oh, I have to change the light bulb in the basement, and I don't want to have that. I dump it first, I place it in front of the door, and then I go in and can be dumb and happy and just do what I want to do, because my subconscious then also knows that the paper does a way better job at remembering these things than if I like fight for like, oh, this and that as well, and this, oh, I have to remember that. So, but yeah, like whether you do it digitally or you do it in conversation, like anything that puts thoughts out of your head is a great practice, I would say. And even if you think something sucks or something, like, then what is it? Like that is a very healing thing to be like, what are you worried about? Like, why do you feel cranky right now? So like, what is it? And then sometimes to have it there, it just loses, the monster is way littler, way smaller when it's on this little page in one sentence. So, and sometimes not. Then you make a mind map around it and be like, oh wow, this is an enemy with many heads, and what are the heads, and how can I address one after another? But to address all at the same time. Anyone is stressed by that, whether you work at NASA or you're a genius or you're just a stupid drummer. It's just something that is overwhelming to have more than 2 or 3 thoughts at the same time in your mind. And I read recently, because I'm writing this book now, I did a lot of research about like stress and focus and blah, blah, blah. And there are hilarious things that I read about how many thoughts a human can have in their head, or how many things can we hold in our head, like just remembering at the same time. And it's 2 or 3. We think like it should be more. A great thing that I read, but I have to verify that still. I don't know if it's true, but I so wish it's true because it's so great, is they measured attention span, and they say like a young adult today has the attention span of about like 3 to 4 minutes, and goldfish have 7. So I don't know if that is really true. Really have to compare, but if that is true, like, holy moly, it's better to write it down and then after 7 minutes still maybe have it there.
Yeah, I like the idea of having something immaterial be materialized as well. I think that's a really interesting way to think about it.
That's the only way to have something material ever, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about a house, everything has to be finished before it ever is finished. A house will never be finished unless it's finished in the mind of the architect or the guy who plans it. It's everything is already finished, like it is there. And then they talk about it like that. They say like, this is the house, although it's a piece of paper. But that's how creation really works, and how we structure things and yeah.
Benny, I want to come back around to the book that you're working on. I have some thoughts from the breadcrumbs that you've shared, which I'm excited about. But I want to include Joe in this conversation too. I know typically he's just the pretty face that kind of makes us all look better. But it's been a couple weeks since, Joe, we've checked in with you on the podcast. And what I really love about what we do, and especially this episode, I mean, it's truly global what we're doing. And one of the things that connects us all is that we are enduring this world life event together, but from different geographical perspectives. So Joe, in the UK, what has life been like the past 2 weeks? And I think even more importantly, what have you learned about yourself? What has helped you as day to day you're figuring out how to make the best use of your time?
Yeah, well, life itself hasn't changed much since we last spoke. The lockdown effects are still in play. The strange thing that happened was that our Prime Minister was admitted to hospital. And that was very weird to observe. Like, certainly, when it all started kicking off, your mind sort of races and you think like, oh, imagine if that would happen, or imagine if this scenario would happen. And like, one of them was that. I was like, how would that feel, and how would the world react? So it was bizarre to see that play out, but apparently he's on the mend, which is a good thing. I think this week my depression has been bad this week. I'm not sure why. I think it just has been. It's been up and down. The one thing that has been helping has just been working out every day. Days where I'm like feeling tired and I'll say like, oh, I won't do anything today. I'll get to like midday and I'm like, I'll just do it, because by then I feel like I need to and want to, and it just lifts me out. I've been feeling a similar thing to what Benny said a couple times, because I've been so much more creative during this time, and I've been having like this weird anxiety, thinking, when things return back to normal, am I still going to be as creative? I'm worried that I won't be. And of course, the answer is just to make sure you are. So it's a weird thing, but part of that, I've been finding a lot of comfort, I guess, in my work and being creative, but it got to a point where it was, my wife said to me, like, she feels like she hasn't really seen me much, even though we've been living with each other 24 hours a day. And I realized that I was sort of seeking comfort in my desk and computer a bit too much, and I wasn't actually present. So that's been this week's sort of shift mentally, which is a weird, I don't know. It was weird to observe, but yeah, that's what I've been working on this week. And that's been nice. I've felt a lot more present and kind of just generally happier and less stressed, because if I decided to chill out for some of an afternoon previously, I'd be getting this weird like stress in myself, where I'm like, I'm not maximizing on this situation. I've got this time. I should try and do everything I can to maximize on the time and be creative. And so I've just been trying to sort of take a step back a bit and be like, it's okay to chill out a bit and read outside. So that's been this week's journey mentally. It feels like it's been a long one. I feel like time seems to be going really quickly, but just super slowly at the same time. Like the weeks, day by day, go really quickly, but when I think about Monday, that seems like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But I do keep wondering what life will be like when everything returns to normal. And I've been sort of having fun fantasizing in my head about how different systems might change. Like, how is global politics going to be affected by this? Will social divides in communities be lessened because it's sort of reduced everyone to the same playing field to some extent? I feel that people are a lot more empathetic and appreciative of far more people currently. Like, it's just stripped back so much ego, and I just think it's been incredibly humbling, really. And I'm interested to see how that changes the world, because something like this hasn't happened in a long time. So yeah.
I really like what you shared, and just the honesty you were willing to share publicly about the interaction with your wife. And look, it's an interesting kind of thing to think about, where you're in the same physical space, but yet how present are you in that physical space? How much of your attention and your energy is open to the others that, quite frankly, we have the privilege to interact with in a time like this. Look, obviously, one of the reasons I'm attracted to a community such as this is because we are all creatives, mostly musicians, but yet I think we bring this humanistic kind of interest and philosophy into the work that we all do, as musicians, and the ways that we connect in community as musicians and more broadly as creatives. So, Benny, to go back to this book that you're creating right now, you mentioned researching the idea of our own attention. Look, I'm assuming you're not writing a book about like the best paradiddle practice. That's just
no.
And one of the things that stuck with me, I was picking some stuff up from my apartment yesterday, and I grabbed the book. I think it's called The Inner Game of Tennis.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I bought that book immediately after one of the long weekends we spent in the Catskills in New York. I read maybe the first couple chapters, and for whatever reason set it aside and didn't come back to it. So in picking some stuff up yesterday, that is one of two books that I brought home to dig into, in the very near future. So my question for you, I mean, I could see you writing The Inner Game of Drumming. Is that kind of where you're going?
The first thing that I have to humbly admit is that maybe we even talked the last time about this book already. I think it's still the same book I'm writing on, because I've been writing on this for years. And so I have to preface that first. Maybe listeners, if you can go back to that other Chocolate Croissants podcast with me, there's maybe even more information on that book, but a little bit out of date. So anyway, so this is really something that, and I mean, to what you said before is like, I worried about this. I jokingly say sometimes one of the worst things about this is that at the end of the year, I might have no excuse anymore that I don't have this book finished. It's like, because one of the things that will get my mood down is office work and working in front of a laptop. And I didn't realize in my naive hippie sense that writing a book is basically a desk job. I became a musician to not have a desk job, but writing a book is basically writing a book 70 or 100 times, because when you move this one thing to this other thing to make it work better, then you have to read through it all again and realize, that doesn't make. And then you have to do it all again, and like it's really like this dragon where you hit one head and then another one grows out. So yes, but so this first in my defense. Second of all, yes, this is basically it's about effective practicing for musicians. So what goes into that? What basic principles are at play at first? And then a real pretty strategic kind of way how to use those principles that we discussed and learned about, how we then use them so everyone can. It's basically like a Mincer at the end. It's a formula where everyone can throw in their unique situation, turn it, and then a customized practice plan comes out in the end. This is kind of the idea. So it's kind of specific enough to do very specific things, and it's still open enough to whether you play a cello or you play drums or you are a beginner or an advanced or whatever, you can throw your parameters in there and your desires. And by using this system, kind of, boom, you have a very specific, okay, what should I do now, this minute? And what should I do in 3 months? And I just wish that someone would have given me a book like that when I started, or even like a couple of years ago. So, and because I wanted to be perfect, which is of course the enemy of fast, I'm still sitting on it. But I'm closer than ever, and I'm already very unmodestly very proud of it. I think it will be good.
It's great. I'm excited for that. It would help me. I think we talked about that before, that I could use continued help in those areas. So I'm still patiently waiting. So get it going.
Oh man, yes.
I have one other question, because I know we're getting kind of close to time here. But it's a question that came in from our Facebook group in many different ways, not even specific to this episode, but a question that we've gotten a lot over the past few weeks, which is, what is the routine now? What is your daily routine, and how have you put one together? So I guess my question is, aside from the work that you're doing, what is the routine that you've developed, like in terms of the other aspects of your life, like the wellness, health, exercise, things like that? Do you have a daily routine that you follow, or a weekly routine that you follow? And if so, what do you mind sharing?
Yeah. So the morning question is basically before any planning gets done. This is kind of like the I'm barely conscious. Hi, what are you grateful for today? Then in this situation right now, the first plan is to make a plan. Maybe like many musicians do, I have a lot of old posters, band posters of tours that maybe were leftovers or something. And I have this pile next to my desk, and I throw a poster out. I take the back side of it, gaffer it to the wall, and ask whoever is with me, at this time, like my son, my girl, and we say, like, okay, let's make a daily plan. Let's first make a mind map of things that you want to do today, and we write them all down without criticism. Like, what, really? No, you just write it all down. And then the next step is like, okay, do we have everything? Okay, a little bit, okay. Then we write after every one of these things a time estimate. Which is like, how much do you think you want to have time for that? And then my son will say, like, hey, Donkey Kong, 2.5 hours. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, geez. And then like, what about making it an hour or like 20 minutes? And then we discuss that stuff. And then after everything has a time limit, then we can start to move those Lego pieces around and maybe be like, you know what, this is all outside stuff. This is all inside stuff. So first, having the inspiration and ideas of things we want to do. Second, seeing what they require, which resources or contexts are necessary. You know what, we have to go shopping to buy toilet paper. and we want to take a walk in the park, so maybe let's do those two, so together they will be this time. Is that realistic? And then of course a day only has 12 hours or whatever, and then it's like, you know what, which ones are maybe okay if we don't do them today? So what are must-haves, what are nice-to-haves? And then that can be a thing. So now there are a couple of things which would be called routine that I want to have in every day. Nowadays, it's actually some kind of workout, some kind of moving, whether it's stretching. My girlfriend is an absolute badass at yoga and stuff, and I'm not. So I will try to do my best there and scare the neighbors because I'm screaming and shouting and cursing, and I'll try my best there. She then maybe does, I have weights here and I have a pull-up bar, which is basically then all you need, some push-ups, some pull-ups, and you just do enough of them until everything hurts, and then that's great. And then I've gotten into this thing, it's called the Wim Hof method, that I gotten in like 2 years ago, actually, because I got so sick that I for the first time in my life couldn't play a tour. And this was, for me, a big blowback, because I always prided myself, like macho-ish, which is also silly, right? But still, I did it. I remember myself saying, like, oh, I never had to cancel a gig. I never had to cancel a tour. And so it came to the point where I had, like, really had, like, fever for 2 weeks and, like, just felt like I'm about... anyway, but that was tough. And even when I was then... healthy, the doctor was in his right mind and said, like, yeah, but I still want you to come in and do a last check. Kind of, we take blood, and I'm like, really? Do you have to? So I'm a pussy. I'm like, no, I get another. And he's like, no, let's do it. And he analyzed the blood, and I was feeling fit. I was like, okay, let's go. Like, everything's back to normal. And he said, like, that's weird. So you feel good? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, that's weird, because your inflammation levels are at the level of someone who lies down with pneumonia and is completely destroyed. So, and I'm like, oh, really? And so that was very interesting and made me research into, I actually didn't know, first of all, that you can take a blood test and you can measure a level of inflammation just in organs in the blood, like in little, like almost like little construction sites in the body, like everywhere. I wasn't aware of that. I thought, like, oh, either I really feel it, or I have a cut somewhere and an infection or something, or everything is fine. And that works on you and weakens your immune system, and it takes you a lot of, like with video games, this energy bar at the top. Right. That is a thing. And then I stumbled upon this Wim Hof method, and I did meditation before. But to cut it short, what I believe in is, and I do this now since 2 years, what I do believe in is true, is that there is some potential in discomfort, and there is some growth in discomfort. It's not always connected. There is some discomfort that makes you weaker, and that is worse, and it's actually an important sign. But there is some discomfort that brings you maybe back to a strength that you should have. And one of these things is that I think our body was built in a time where that is not really applicable to nowadays. That's why we react so weirdly on sugar. That's why we react so weirdly on fat, because we still have the same machine that tried to get as much fat on this one day in the savannah when we had it available, and never expected to have it every day available when we call the delivery service. It's just not good for us. So, and the same is with temperature. So I do believe that it's actually good to, and our body was built to be sometimes a little bit too hot, sometimes a little bit too cold, not all the time, but that is important for our cardiovascular system to work and expand and everything. And if we now live in a world where everything has to be just perfect, and just the air conditioning, and oh, please close the window, that makes us basically weak. Now I'm getting a stupid call. Let me turn that off. So the Wim Hof method, I'm not dogmatic in this. I'm not. I saw interviews of him where he talked a couple of things where I'm like, but what I find beneficial is, in my personal experience, is to take a cold shower. Now I'm up to like 5 to 7 minutes or something. I now bought a little pool, like a little just like blow up thingy, you know, like it looks like a barrel, and then I can fill it with water, which in Germany is usually enough. It's usually then around like 10 degrees, 4 degrees, something like that. If not, you fill it with a little bit of ice and stuff, get it down to 4 degrees. And I try to sit in there. Like my record is 13 minutes now. And but I can't do it every day for 13 minutes, I have to say. But it's something that I almost now don't want to be without. I get almost cranky. I feel like a little bit. I want to cool myself down. And I had days where I had a little bit of headaches or a little bit of like crankiness and stuff. And after that, you like reset. I mean, the science on this says that it puts down inflammation. It trains your whole veins and everything, because they have to contract and open up and everything. My goal is usually to get to a point where afterwards I can draw on my chest. So, you know, like after a sunburn where it's like a little bit red and you can like press, and then there's a white thing remaining. So that is great. And this breathing technique is also amazing. There are tons of YouTube videos about it. To do that before going to bed. My son already knows the drill. He gets a comic or something. I open the window. I roll him like a moth in like something, and I let the room cool down a little bit and do this breathing technique before we go to bed. It's very relaxing. It's wonderful, and it's great. So with moving, with breathing, and a little bit of cold exposure, and with focusing the mind on these things, that's kind of my points that I want to have and I find beneficial.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I fully relate. I mimic that on a daily basis as well. It's funny you mentioned the headache thing, or if you're in a bit of a bad mood. I've found myself even in the middle of the day sometimes, because normally I'll start the day with a very cold shower. But I found myself sometimes in the middle of the day, if I'm stressed or if I'm anxious or I'm having a headache, I find myself knowing that I can do that. I can go take a cold shower for 5 minutes, and you don't feel that way anymore. You know, when you finish and you turn the water off and you're standing there, you feel like a new person. Yeah, you refresh, amazing. You start. It's an amazing feeling. So I can relate to that. Are you doing the traditional breathing that Wim Hof teaches on a nightly basis? And if so, do you have a number of rounds that you typically would do?
Yeah, I usually do 4 rounds, and as much breath hold as I can do, but without like super forcing myself. But I think the main thing, and if someone wants to investigate this, keep in mind, I think for me at least, the main thing is actually not, for example, when you do the cold shower stuff or the ice bath stuff, some people think that it's mostly about like fighting that or like staying in there. Where I think the most helpful and actually purpose of this is to control your breath, or get your breath under control as fast as possible. Right. To not be like, which is normal in the beginning, but and what I found is a guy like Ben Greenfield like recommends that as well. To do a couple of deep breaths before, then hold your breath and go into the cold with a held breath, actually, which really helps as well.
Yeah, they say that activates the brown fat, as they call it, right? Which is the fat that has the ability to warm you up.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that stuff, to be quite honest.
Sure.
But what I do believe in is Sorry?
I was saying it's hard to measure that or see that when you're, you can't look under the skin necessarily as you're doing. But I agree with you. I find when I'm about to go in the cold, I do maybe 6 breaths or 10 breaths, and then hold with this intention of this is going to be cold and it's going to be wonderful. And I'm going to enjoy it. And I notice it starts to almost feel warm at points.
Yeah. And it almost seems like after a while to not go as deep. It doesn't seem to go through you, but more like, oh, this is more like a surface kind of thing, and I get to relax. But what I wanted to say is this, so it's more about being relaxed instead of like, and same with the breath hold, where it's like, I usually focus almost more on like, okay, I shake myself out a little bit. I mean, not too much movement, but like almost like, how relaxed am I? How much do I feel myself on the surface? Like that gets a lot of calmness done instead of like this breath hold kind of, I think that's the actual purpose of this, to relax into this and to have a very peaceful kind of experience with this. And especially, although it sounds counterintuitive, also with the cold shower, to be like, to just relax into this. Because I think this is the real lesson, or at least for me, because if there is something that wants to stress you, a stimulus from outside, that you have the ability to freely choose how you react to that.
Right.
That is the superpower, right? It's like almost this Viktor Frankl kind of stuff, that between stimulus and response, there is this space, and that's where our freedom lies. So that there is not, like, for example, like a friend tells you about these cups and stuff, and you begin to worry, that's maybe the first instinct that you have. But to realize, like, okay, I get this stresses me, but how do I really want to react to this? What will serve me right now? Like, or what is productive right now, even for the friends, or even for the, and I hope you excuse me that I bastardized that example right now, but I think that's almost kind of the main lesson of, like, what, this is stressing, this is maybe unpleasant, but I get to choose how I experience this right now. And I can, even if my monkey brain says like, get out, that I can choose to be like, what, I want to be here right now. I want to step into this right now. Or I don't have to breathe right now. I will just relax and feel what happens and observe what happens without changing anything, without, I need to breathe. Do I really? And of course, if you do. But so this is really the exploration there for me to kind of gently be in control and explore, and then also see these things in everyday life. It's like, I get an email. It's like, really? Do I need this right now? Do I want this right now? What do I really want? And so I believe in that. And what I also believe in is that it is beneficial that the cardiovascular system gets trained that way, and that the immune system gets activated by that. And also, there is a book called The Oxygen Advantage, that also goes into, like, if you really fill your lungs a lot with oxygen, and how beneficial that is, and alone to have deep breaths, because in everyday life we sometimes don't focus on that. We have shallow breaths and stuff, and it's just something that's just not healthy, really. And usually, again, when a saber-toothed tiger would, like, chase us, we would breathe deeply every once in a while, But when you sit on a desk the whole day and, like, don't open the windows and have shallow breathing and stuff, it's way easier to get, like, down and feel out of energy and stuff. So it kind of makes sense to me. There are a couple of things that don't make that much sense to me. For example, he uses a very poetic way to talk about these things, and I love science, and I think it's very important how to talk about those things. So that's, I'm sometimes missing a little bit with him. For example, he says, like, when you do the breath hold, like, do now the breath hold without any air in your lungs or something like that, which is of course impossible. If you wouldn't have any air in your lungs, like you would die, it would collapse and stick to each other and stuff. There's always air in the lungs, but these are, when you know that and you see that more as a metaphor and more as a help to kind of guide you through these thingies, so there's not that much need to kind of really freak out that you have now completely collapsed lungs or something.
Yeah, I can see that part of it for sure. I find myself even questioning, am I buying into this in a bit of a hokey way, but you can't.
I was very disappointed when there was this Goop thing. Like my girlfriend told me about it, and I'm like, oh no, not on Goop. Oh jeez,
Yeah.
But yeah.
The benefits are there on a very personal level. I mean, you really do feel them when you take advantage of these things and practice these things, and you get better at it. I'm still very much working on. I think I'm really working on what you mentioned, which is focusing on the calm with the breathing, because I find myself wanting to feel the effects that I know that tell me it's working. And sometimes I think that I tend to breathe deep but faster in order to achieve the effects, which of course then creates a little bit less relax. But I guess what I'm referring to is I really know things are working when I'm 4 or 5 rounds in and my head is light, or my feet are tingling, or my hands have tensed up in a way where they're kind of uncontrollable. Or like when we started this call, my face was definitely, like kind of pursed together because I had really gone through it. Those are the physical effects. But I also, I again, to wrap this up, I find myself doing it a couple different times a day if I'm lucky.
Okay.
I like to do it in the morning when I haven't eaten, before I really before I'll have any kind of meal, because I find that I can really take in more.
But you should do it on empty stomach.
Yeah, and in the morning is when I do it a little bit more exercise-like, I guess. But in the afternoon, I tend to do it while I'm taking advantage of a sauna.
Right, and that's great.
What's that? I'm sorry?
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I really am relaxed with it, because my body and my mind knows, like, okay, you're in the sauna. You don't want to overheat yourself. You don't want to pass out in the sauna either.
No, so you don't.
I tend to really focus on the relaxation aspect of it. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a benefit to, some benefits to both ways. If I should try to maybe focus in on the relaxation part of both sides of it, and I think I am naturally aware of that. More so because of the cold showers. My focus in the cold is to really breathe, and I'll sing songs in my head sometimes, and I'll even dance or move and like pay attention to whether my hands are loose or my shoulders are loose, and I'm slowly starting to bring that into and adopt that with the breathing as well.
But the only thing I can recommend to that is I think, and that's a thing that's in drumming sometimes too, where people say like, oh, play this paradiddle and then say your name, or like do this and that and that. And I think that's really not the thing. So for example, when you hold your breath and you try to almost kind of distract yourself from holding a breath by and that way making it longer and stuff, I think it can be maybe way more blissful to just stay and experience your body and really experience like what's going on. I think that's the real deal, to not kind of go through the motions for me, even not the tingling. I think it's actually maybe good when the tingling is not too much, or like I also breathe a little bit slower than he does. But of course, I'm not an expert there. But it's I like to do it in the evening. It's like to just let that relaxation kind of be like, all right, let's just switch off the light and we'll. It's just a nice thing to do. But yeah, I mean, that's the great thing. Everyone can do it. It's cheap. You don't need a membership. You don't need to like it's a very simple, very accessible thing, and we can also try around with it, and maybe in a week will be like, Matt, you were right. This is way better.
Yeah.
Sorry, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm really interested by the cold shower thing, because I remember a couple months ago I was in a session with my therapist, and she was mentioning that there's I can't remember where it was, North Norway or something, but it's a retreat where people go to treat their anxiety, and it's about basically plunging yourself into frozen lakes. And controlling your breath and getting out and doing it repeatedly, and people, months after go and say I haven't had a panic attack since I did it, whereas I was having them daily before. And I've just been interested into why, and I was thinking, is it because if you plunge yourself into water, you get the cold shock reflex where you gasp and gasp and gasp. And as you guys are saying, it's about controlling your breath through that. And the only way I could think that it might work is it resets your brain into acknowledging that the cold is a real threat. And by controlling your breath, you can counter the threat. And then does that then subconsciously mean if you're feeling panicked and you just control your breath, makes you realize that actually there is no real threat and you can control it or something? I don't know. I was just wondering if you guys, having done the cold showers, because since the last I was on, I did one cold shower and it was just the worst. I hated it. But I'd like to keep trying. I think I was like, I'll see what this is about, and I put it on just where it was freezing and got in and started hyperventilating, and then I got out after 15 seconds. But I was just interested if you guys have any insight or experience with that, if you've noticed a decrease in anxiety. And I guess it's hard to tell if it's the breathing or the cold showers, but yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. It's very hard, especially at first when you do it, Joe, to think about anything else. When you get in the cold, you're focused on the cold, and that's what you're feeling, that's what you're thinking, that's what is encompassing every bit of your being. And I think for me, when that happens, I really lean into it more in order to maintain and be able to I guess live in it, really be there and feel it and get used to it and try to find the good in it, actually try to enjoy it in a way, I guess is what I'm saying. And there's two things I want to say. One is I definitely have noticed that when I am feeling anxious, it's a similar thing. I don't try to bury it away. I go to it. I find, why am I feeling this way, and I feel it, and I observe it. I try to observe it from a different level, and I look in and I say, okay, these are the thoughts I'm having. This is what it's making me feel. To Benny's point before, I can choose to feel this way, or I can choose to not feel this way. It doesn't necessarily stop it from starting, at different points of the day from different factors, but it helps me to identify it and then decide how to respond to it, which is, again, I think very akin to the cold. You can get in the cold and let it freeze you and think oh my God, this is so cold, this is so cold, this is so cold, and like run away with that. Or you can think, yeah, this is really cold. Let me turn around a bit and see how it feels in my back. Let me turn around and see how it feels in my arms. Oh, I notice my hands, they feel colder than my back does. I'm going to stay there for a minute and see if I can get beyond that. And you start to just really be present with what you're feeling and experiencing as you go through it. And I've developed sort of like a method as to like how I get into the shower now, or how I would get into the cold. It's not just like jumping in and here we go. You know, you breathe. And then when I get in, I start with my arms and my hands, and I start with my feet and my legs, and then I step forward into it slowly while breathing, and then I slowly let it go in my neck and my face and my head, and then I'm in and I start to really pay attention to how it affects every part of my body and feel it and breathe and enjoy it. And then once I'm past that initial point, then I'll pick up the soap, and I'll even clean in the morning with it, and I'll smell how good the soap smells and feel the shower. And it's like you just become very aware of your feelings, of your senses, of every aspect of it, and that helps you to then identify your feelings and your senses and what you're going through when you experience.
Sorry guys, I'll be back in a second.
Sure. When you experience other things like anxiety or like hardship or other challenges. One thing I would say to you is, if you want to do this, don't just go and get in a cold shower first. You really have to slowly build up to it. And the best way to do it is tonight or today, if you're going to take a shower, take a warm shower. Clean up, do your thing. And then at the end of your shower, turn it to cold and stand under the water and just breathe and feel it that way for like 30 seconds. You know, if you can do a minute, but don't just jump in out of nowhere to the cold shower, because not only at that point do you experience like the flinch of it, like, oh, I'm about to get into this, oh no, like this is going to be bad, and then you get in and it's, of course, it's jarring. But if you're already in the shower and you're warm, and then you know that your challenge is to end your shower with it cold and to, you know, practice it slowly like that, that is a really great way to do it. So start with just like 20, 30 seconds at the end of your shower, and then end it cold, and then stand there. Don't just dry off right away. Stand there in the air and breathe for a little bit. And don't go crazy, because you don't, don't do like big deep breaths necessarily. Just breathe calmly, full in, full out, and feel how good it feels to be really exposed to having been exposed to cold, but then feeling how nice the air feels on you, right? And how calm you can be in that moment. And then you just do it again the next day. And then maybe if you get used to it after 4 or 5 days, go for a minute at the end of your shower. And maybe during the shower, go for cold and then go back to warm, and then maybe go for cold again, and just practice it slowly to where getting in the shower cold is not as scary, because you really know what to expect and you can prepare for that challenge, you know? I don't know. I hopefully that helps, but that's how I compare it to the experience with other things in my life, and it's also how I'm approaching utilizing it every day, you know. And the last thing I'll say is this: I now find myself looking for colder experiences than what I can just get in the shower. Right? I'm talking about Benny's ice barrel, or the barrel that he gets in. That's my next step. I can put ice in the bathtub, but I don't like the idea necessarily of laying down with it. I want to be up. I want to be upright so that I can breathe properly and feel it properly. So my next step is to have a barrel that I can fill with water and ice and fully submerge and rest there and try to stay for, initially see if I can do a few minutes, and then maybe 5 minutes, and then maybe I'll get to 10, and maybe, who knows. But I find myself seeking even more cold than what I can get now. So anyway, sorry. That's my side. Benny, I don't know if you have any other insight there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is so much material like online of like from the guy himself, like how to do it, and it's really like a thing now. The one thing I think I want to say is that I want to focus on is, first of all, especially if anyone out there or any of you guys think like, oh, it's maybe not for me or something. One part why I was interested in that as well was because I was always the most sensitive whenever like there was some like hiking in the mountains or any lake. I was always the guy who was like, and then like just like it took me 20 minutes or like 30 minutes while everyone else was already, and I'm like, yeah, I'm there, only the legs first. And it was really a bloodbath. It was horrible. So I was fed up with that. So that was also, so if you you could have, anyone out there I think can't be worse than me than I was when I started this. So I don't think you have to be oh yeah, it's no problem kind of attitude. Quite to the contrary. That's the one thing. The other thing is, the thing that's great is muscle soreness goes away faster. Like I experienced when I worked out and I really like overdid it maybe a little bit, or tried out a new stupid exercise and was like a little bit too proud of myself, and I already feel it kind of like, oh then I really have the feeling that kind of makes like inflammation or like muscle soreness kind of that eases that a lot. That's good. The other thing that's great is you will never have that feeling again getting out of the shower and being like cold, because when you do that at the end, you go out of the shower and this is way warmer than like, you know, like you're very comfortable with a lot of time. You can take the towel or not, or like that's amazing. I remember all these feelings of like getting out of the shower, always like bent over and be like, ugh. Like that just doesn't happen anymore. I like that. And yeah, just like starting with 30 seconds. Yes, this app, you can do this challenge there or not or whatever. I think lying down is actually okay too. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I think he recommends that very often. The irony of the whole thing is I had scheduled kind of a course with Wim Hof like this April, and that was canceled because of the coronavirus. But so I wanted to really learn it again from him himself after 2 years. But yeah, I think what's important there, like with everything almost, I would say, is to not have this competitive thing about it, to just more kind of an exploratory kind of like, it's not about like, oh, I want to make it. For me, it's more, the mantra is more like interesting.
Yeah.
Like being interested in it, seeing what happens, like seeing how you feel, and being like, oh, this was very cold. Let's maybe once more, and see how you feel afterwards. I think the only rule of thumb that's important, especially with the ice baths, is if you can even shake inside it, I think that's okay. But when you get out of it and you still keep shaking, that's when you need to take a warm shower or something, because that's then really something that's that gets into the danger zone of like when your body itself cannot warm itself up anymore. So I almost regret saying that 12 minutes thing in the beginning. It's not a competition. Most of the times I don't do that. And the last thing we have to say for safety reasons is that this breath hold stuff is never to be done in water or in a car or something where you can't, because there is a little chance of passing out for just a couple of seconds. It's not dangerous and stuff, but don't do it while in water or in a car or anywhere where you could fall over or something. Do it lying down when you want to try it out. That's the other thing. But I never passed out in 2 years, but maybe also because I don't overdo it that much, or I don't know. But I think it's great to try out.
Yeah, Joe, give it a go. Give it a few days before you say it's not for you. I think you'll really like it. And some of the things that you've mentioned, feeling maybe depression or just the adjustment, I think it'll really reset your mind a good bit and your body, especially with working out. That'll really, to Benny's point, it'll really help with the inflammation too. In bringing that down quickly and getting blood flow, and it's a really enjoyable thing once you commit to it, I think, and you find you may actually really find that you do like it.
I never thought I'd like it. I never did either. I would, at venues on tour, I'd avoid taking the shower at the end of the night sometimes because it'd be cold. And now I'm almost willing to go last just to take a cold shower at the end of the night. Okay, guys, I think I will take a shower.
You just kind of don't care anymore, right? If it's like, if it's warm, great. If it's cold, okay.
Nice challenge.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. So anyway, I hope that helps you, Joe.
Yeah. I think what spoke to me the most was when you said if you're feeling anxious, being able to decide about how you deal with that, because I've had anxiety my whole life and panic attacks, and I've had therapy a lot for it, but still it feels like this out of control beast that follows me around, and panic attacks to me are like, if I'm gonna get one, then I can't do anything about it still. So the way you described being able to sort of interact with it a bit and sort of break it down and have a choice about it is a very attractive idea to me. So I'll definitely.
I think another parallel is also it's a mixture between acceptance and decision. So it's not only surrendering, but it's also not fighting against it and making up your mind that it's completely different. It's like it's kind of I don't know how to describe it better. It's almost like, oh yeah, wow, that is intense. Oh wow, I wanna fight or flight kind of. But like it's and I can do this about it, and I can experience it this way. And what I heard as well about, but I don't know, I'm out of my depth here, but what kind of makes sense for me hippie-wise is that maybe there is this stress level that we sometimes, I think, make ourselves of. And there's, of course, chemical reasons for depression. There's all kinds of stuff, and I'm not a doctor and I don't want to, but what made sense for me, at least, having experienced mild forms of this, is that it seems to me that if there's an anxiety muscle kind of that wants to be exercised and wants some like a dog that wants to go out every once in a while, and if I don't leave it out controlled with a leash, it will escape every once in a while by itself. And I have these two choices: either I confront that every once in a while and I push myself a little bit, or I go in there and experience it and deal with it. But under my circumstances and under my control, it then otherwise will just do that with me. So instead of I'm having that experience, not that experience has me whenever it wants. So, but of course that's also a poetic way of kind of talking about it. But maybe.
No, I don't think it's whimsical at all. I think it makes a lot of sense. It builds a relationship with the experience as well. So if it happens, then it's probably going to be less scary because you've got more experience to fall back on and think that but hang on, I've done this and this was the result and it was absolutely fine, which then gives you confidence and can aid you in dealing with the situation. Yeah. Cool.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I love these perspectives. I will say that this conversation was what I needed today.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's good. It sets me up for this next day, weekend, week, with some good goals, some things that I want to actually add into my day a little bit. notably writing things down a little bit more and kind of, taking advantage of some of the things that you mentioned, Benny, and continuing on with my positive focus. So,
That's
thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for.
And whenever you want to continue this off air, like, let me just know, any one of you guys, I would love to stay in contact. It's just great to see you guys again, of course.
Yeah.
Likewise, brother.
Always. So, Jordan, do you want to take us out?
I will. So, of course, Facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. Come join our community. It's safe, it's supportive, it's positive, it's creative, and for us in particular, it's what we needed in a time like this. So if you are listening to my voice, you are warmly welcome to that. To finish, two quick things that I guess have a touch of romanticism to it. Benny, I want you to know that every time I drink dry red wine, I think of you, my friend. and out of the two long weekends that I got to spend with you in the mountains, one of my favorite experiences was one of the nights. It was, obviously dark outside. We kind of dimmed the lights in the barn with
Wait, first you make me sound like an alcoholic, and now you put this romance stuff in. I'm happy to see where this is going. Go again. Sorry.
So the lights were dim. About 25 of us were gathered, and you played just some of your favorite songs. Hooked up maybe it was an iPod back then. I don't know. But you played some of your favorite songs, and one of them was the first song off Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, the song So What. And I loved that experience so much. It felt so good in the moment. And the reason I bring that up is most people listening to this right now, either you're a musician, you have a passion for music, or just a creative in some other medium, whether it's writing or painting. And especially in a time like this, where many of us with good reason are feeling stress or anxiety or sadness at times, we have these tools already. Listening to a song like So What makes me feel better. Perhaps for someone, painting can make you feel better. Not for just the productivity or the final product, but the actual act can have significant effects biologically, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. So I want us to know that we all have these tools within us already, and it may not be something so novel as taking an ice bath. It could be something as simple as the things that we already do, but maybe acknowledging that the things we already do naturally have so much just potential therapeutically for us. So that is where I'd like to end. Benny, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. It's always wonderful to reconnect.
Thank you, guys.
And Matt and Joe, much love to you both. Justin, he is out in the world serving people who are in need, so much love to him. And until next time, bye-bye.